there, good people. It's your Crippled Critic, and this week I'm going to talk about Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. So, the Metal Gear Solid series has been a long running game series going all the way back to the 80s, originally under the name Metal Gear. They've always been action stealth games, and by most people's accounts, have shaped the entire video game industry as a whole, being one of the first game series to really put stealth games on the map. Metal Gear Solid is published by Konami, but since the beginning, the lead director and writer has been Hideo Kojima. Kojima has said that he's been inspired by a multitude of Hollywood films when creating Metal Gear Solid. For instance, the World War II movie, The Great Escape, directly influenced the feel and gameplay of Metal Gear Solid. Surveillance watchtowers and evading spotlights are a key element taken from the film. The main character's look and personality was inspired by Kurt Russell's character in the movie Escape from New York. Not only do both characters share the same code name, Snake, but eventually the character from the game dons the same signature eye patch. Though out of all the films that have inspired Kojima, the James Bond franchise has to be the most influential. When you see things in the game like secret missions where the fate of the world hangs in the balance and spy action and espionage, it's easy to see the similarities. Kojima was even quoted saying, without 007, there would be no Metal Gear Solid. So the thing that sets Metal Gear Solid apart to me is that even though it's set in a fictional world, the game incorporates a lot of real history, like the Cold War or the 9/11 attacks. There's also a lot of care put into exploring the effects of warfare and what it does to soldiers, done in a much more mature way than I think any other game out there. Having said that, the game has plenty of supernatural elements and Kojima's own brand of zany, fourth wall breaking humor. I personally love it, but it can be a bit of a shock for those not expecting it in this kind of game. So I've definitely been a big fan of the series. I've played most of the main games. This last game, however, The Phantom Pain, has had a lot of controversy surrounding it. Although the game's development had supposedly been finished at the time, Kojima himself was fired by Konami before the game was even released last year. I've heard rumors that the game was unfinished because of this, and big chunks of it were missing altogether. I and many others believe that Konami has shown a pattern of disrespect to its employees and its customers. Over the years, I've had to watch them destroy the Metal Gear Solid series, as well as several of my other favorite franchises, as they've run them straight into the ground. It's for these reasons that I didn't immediately go out and buy The Phantom Pain when it came out. Instead, I waited a year when it was extremely cheap, and I bought a used copy. I'll continue to support Kojima in whatever he does in the future, but I'm not going to give Konami any more of my money. I mention all this just so you'll know where I'm coming from as I review the game. So, let's jump into the controls of Phantom Pain. Now, this game has extremely limited controls. I mean, you do have your basic subtitled option and changing the brightness, and that's, I guess, good, a little basic, but you can also lower the sensitivity of your camera. I think the most positive thing about the controls is that there is a form of auto aiming, but it only works when you're about 10 feet away from a target. Far away targets, you're kind of screwed on getting them, so I don't know, not very useful. When there's multiple targets within 10 feet of you, it's sort of useful, but I gotta be honest, it feels more like a boost or a perk, not really an accessibility option. But the customizable buttons, yeah, there are none. I'm telling you, there's nothing you can change on the control options for your controller buttons. Well, there are two different control types, action type and shooter type. But honestly, only a few buttons even change. It really doesn't feel like they put any effort in making the game accessible. As you can see, this is definitely one of those games that tries to make use of every button and make every button extremely important. Now I know Metal Gear Solid 5 is already kind of a difficult game to play, even just gameplay wise. There's just no need to make every single button so important, especially because 4 or 5 of the buttons you never really have to press, well except for the One time, the game forces you to go through a tutorial and press the button once, even if it's just to show you what it does. Heck, they even utilize both sides of the touchpad. Yeah, both sides. I don't think I've ever played a game like that. I guess if I were to try to help you out, I would say the most important buttons are R2, which is attack, X, and definitely need to crouch and get on the ground with circle. Reload, square button, is pretty useless when it comes to reloading because it'll do that automatically, but you do use square to pick things up. No way to toggle any of the menu buttons, and there's a lot of different menus. No joke, there is no way I would ever be able to play this game if it wasn't for the PS4's already built in accessibility options. And even when I turned them on and changed the controls, it was still difficult. It's a good thing I could play it, but developers really shouldn't use the PS4's built in options as a crutch. There is an extremely great feature that I had to talk up because even though the controls in this game aren't very good, there is an interesting option you can do that I've never seen before. It's called the chicken hat. Now, throughout the game, you'll be going through a lot of missions that involve taking out or sneaking past a bunch of enemies. Now, even using stealth mechanics, that can be pretty difficult. But when turning on the chicken hat, you can actually make it so enemies can't see you at all. I've seen a lot of people on the internet say that they never even heard of this feature, so I think I'll go into how it works because I couldn't even find a source online that got how to activate it correctly. So I'll explain. Like a bunch of games that treat these kind of options as cheats, there are a few penalties for using the chicken hat. They're really just lowering your ranking, which you receive a rank every time you finish a mission. But I really didn't care at all about my rank. The only thing that affects, I think, is the trophies that you collect, and maybe your overall ranking at the end of the game. I think that sometimes your rank may give you extra perks, or extra money, or currency, but that really wasn't enough for me to not use it. But fair warning. After you go to the accessibility options and turn on the chicken hat, that won't automatically put it on when you're playing a mission. The chicken hat won't be activated until you've died a few times in the game. After the second time you die in a row, and it has to be from gunshots or some kind of enemy attacking and killing you, it can't be from suicide or accidentally falling from somewhere up high. Once you pick yes, when you restart from the checkpoint, the main character Snake will come back wearing a red chicken hat with 3 feathers. The 3 feathers are plucked from the hat every time you get seen by an enemy. So you have 3 chances of being seen, and then the hat disappears, and you're back to being seen like normal. There is, however, a second hat that can be activated. A lot of people don't know about this either. It's called the Little Chick Hat, and it's even more of a cheat than the chicken hat. It's activated once you die while wearing the chicken hat. If you die once while wearing the chicken hat, suddenly another option will appear in the continue menu that says you want to use the Little Chick Hat. The Little Chick Hat is yellow and has no feathers to fall off, so you're essentially not able to be seen by any enemy, making the game pretty easy. Still, even this option isn't foolproof, because in my experience, bosses can still see you, and enemies and tanks, which is strange that that doesn't count. The catch is, with the yellow Little Chick Hat, you can only use it once a day. Yeah, you can't reactivate it in one day after you've used it once. I've looked online, and a lot of people are really confused about this, and some have different methods of activating it more than once, but I can only find one way to get the Little Chick Hat to activate more than once per day, and that is to manually go back into your PS4 options and change the date. It has to be done while the game is playing in the background or it won't work, but you can always change it back when you're done. It sort of tricks the game into thinking a day has passed. I guess the game has an internal clock because it gives you a daily bonus every time you turn the game on. The chicken hats are a great feature that I think were needed in a really difficult game like this. They look a little ridiculous, but they don't really give you a big penalty for using them. And honestly, by the halfway point of the game, I use these a lot. They made it easier and it stopped the game from being really tedious. So the gameplay. Yeah, if you can't already tell by what I said about the control options, people with fine motor skill impairments are going to have an extremely difficult time playing this game. Not just because of the controls, but there are definitely a lot of times you'll have to move quickly, not just with enemies, but timed missions, which are pretty hard and something you should be aware of. Over the years, the Metal Gear Solid series has slowly been putting a more complicated control scheme into their gameplay, so I can't really say that's new, but this game in particular has really ramped up the stealth mechanics. Now, in my opinion, the whole Metal Gear Solid series has used stealth lightly, like it is about stealth, but it's manageable and not super realistic. But this game, no, this game is very different. The stealth mechanics are as complicated as any Splinter Cell game or Hitman. Enemies are a lot smarter. They are more sensitive to the noises you make and can see you from a lot farther away. After you've been spotted by an enemy and managed to hide from them, it takes a lot longer for your alert status to be lowered. Missions tend to have many branching paths once you get into the meat of them, so stealth is kind of important. Interrogating enemies is way more important than it ever has been in the series, as certain missions won't let you go forward without getting information from enemies. If you've ever played Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker for the PSP, you'll see a lot of similarities. Peace Walker was an older game in the franchise that was later ported to the PS3, and it had a lot of the same mechanics like building up your army and upgrading the mother base. In fact, the more I look at it, the Phantom Pain seems more like a much prettier version of Peace Walker, maybe with a little more customization within each mission. Not sure if I'm a fan of the mission-based elements this game has, but I do think the Phantom Pain did a lot better than Peace Walker. Another mechanic they brought over from Peace Walker was the Fulton recovery system, which essentially balloons enemies away once you've incapacitated them. This is definitely fun and pretty useful for trying to hide bodies once you've knocked them out, but there is kind of a silly and maybe disturbing element to the Fulton recovery system, especially when you realize that you're basically kidnapping and reprogramming soldiers to join your army later, including child soldiers. Side note, any child soldiers that you see in the game, you can't actually hurt them other than knocking them out. So, no child murder, yay. One new feature that I liked was the buddy system, which allows you to bring one person, animal, or creature along with you on any mission, and they each have different skills and attributes. The horse buddy will take you farther areas really quickly, so it's good for missions that are far away. The Phantom Pain is the first game in the Metal Gear Solid series that has open world features, so you'll probably be using the horse to get to most points on the map. This is probably one of my favorite new features they've added because it really does add some variety to the missions. My favorite buddy character was the dog Dee Dee. You find him out in the wild as a stray, and you have the option of taking him back to the mother base. He's a puppy at first, but after a few missions, he'll grow to be a full-grown wolf and able to join you on missions. He's my favorite because he has a unique ability to track where enemies are on the map. This is extremely helpful, especially for missions where I'm being attacked by snipers. Speaking of snipers, the elite sniper character Quiet is also an optional buddy character you can find, and although she is really good at taking out outposts from afar, it was a real pain to unlock her. When I first encountered her, she attacked me as just a regular sniper enemy, so I initially just thought I'd have to take her out. But if you want to keep her as an ally, you have to do a series of weird, intricate, non-lethal things that were not straightforward, but it was kind of annoying. This isn't necessarily new for Kojima, and I guess what I'm saying is don't feel bad if you have to look something up. For gamers with hearing impairments, you shouldn't have too much trouble. Like I said, there are subtitles, but the subtitles are kind of temperamental. You won't always see them for certain characters, like NPCs or just secondary characters. It never seemed like the dialogue that had no subtitles was very important, and I guess the game didn't feel like it was important, but it just seemed kind of strange they would actually give them voice actors. You should be fine, but I thought I would mention it. The soundtrack is fine, appropriate, nothing mood building, so I wouldn't worry about it. There's a bunch of cassette tapes you can find laying around that have 80s pop songs on them, and those are pretty fun. But again, not hearing the music won't hinder your experience. For gamers with visual impairments, I don't think you'll have any trouble at all. Like I said, there's a brightness feature you can change, and as far as colorblind players go, I didn't notice any moment in the game where knowing certain objects' colors were important. So the Phantom Pain, the story is set in 1984. The main character, Snake, wakes up from a 9-year coma, where he creates a new mercenary team and goes into countries like Afghanistan and Zaire in order to exact revenge on the people who destroyed his other forces and came close to killing him. There's a lot of story here, layers and layers of stuff from past games, and it always baffles me to see Kojima try to make a new game in the series that a new player could just pick up and play without having to play the other games. I will say a lot of that is an optional audio cassette you can listen to, but still. So it being mission based, it really made the game be about 90% gameplay and 10% story. There is still a story, but you can tell that Kojima was probably responding to the criticism he got in Metal Gear Solid 4 about there being way too many cutscenes because there's just not a whole lot. Like a lot of open world games, you'll definitely lose track of what's the main focus of the story just because the game doesn't really give you a clear idea of what mission is important. There's a lot of features from previous games that I missed, like the codec calls. They're non-existent in this game. They were kind of long sometimes, but I felt like they made you feel like you were part of a team. This game is trying to be much more mature than the other games in the series, and more realistic as far as military missions go. I guess it did that very well. One last thing I want to mention is that Kojima made the decision to make the main character Snake speak a lot less than he ever has in the series. I've heard he did it because he wanted the main character this time to be more like a blank slate and let players be able to put themselves in his place. If that's the case, I really don't see the point of why they replaced the main voice actor this time around with a big name actor like Kiefer Sutherland. Also, having the main character be so quiet while everyone else still talked a lot just made conversations really awkward.
She's got no memory of anything before that either. Cypher, the KGB, nothing. It looks to be a kind of dissociative disorder. Dissociative amnesia, where memories are blocked out to protect the mind, and dissociative identity disorder, the whole personality changes.
Despite all this, I really do think it's a good game in the series. Not my favorite, but a good one. If you can get a hang of the controls, the stealth does become really fun. The game is just not for casual gamers. For disabled gamers, you're going to have trouble. If you do play it though, I recommend using the chicken hat. The chicken hat is awesome. Well, alright guys, thanks for watching this week, and I'll see you later.